These days I keep hearing stories about how some national fast food chains are in trouble, that locations are dropping like flies because people just can't afford to eat there anymore. Sometimes it's made to sound like an entire chain is about to go bust in the not too distant future. The question is, how much of what you hear is accurate and how much is just over the top hyperbole or exaggeration? Prices have gone up, sure, but around my neck of the woods it doesn't seem out of line with increases in other areas of everyday living, or with inflation in general, and business seems to be rolling along fine at most places around here. So I'm not sure what's truly the case. But today's episode is not intended to be a debate about the current state of the economy. Instead, I'll get off my soapbox now and present little tidbits about several fast food places I grew up with in the 1960s. Some were just getting started during this time, some had been around for some years before but were still relatively young in their history, but all seemed focused on being affordable for the average Joe and provided good starter jobs for those just getting started in their life's journey. Today's episode is not intended to provide much of a history of any of them, just some things I remember about a few of these places as they were in the 60s. So here we go. First, McDonald's. Other than the fact they seem to be the fastest growing of the places, with new locations popping up seemingly overnight, I remember riding as a passenger as a kid in the early years of the 60s era, as we drove past a McDonald's near us to see if they had updated their burgers sold sign that was right below the Big M over the last few days. We would drive by, sometimes just to see the sign, even if it wasn't along the way to wherever we were headed. And the menu very limited compared to later years, just burgers, fries, and drinks back then, and not much else. And all for about 15 or 20 cents each. Next on the list is Arby's. Arby's early places were small, especially the one near us. Just a tiny building with just enough room for the service counter and a couple of booths. The place was mostly for carry-out orders, even though I don't think they even had a drive-through in those early days. But the sign out front, that was the biggest part of the whole operation. This huge cowboy hat-shaped sign overshadowed that small building. Huge signs like that aren't allowed in most communities today due to local ordinances, but back then the sky seemed to be the limit. Also, I remember one time they had a promotion where for a slight extra cost you could get your drinks in real glass glasses emblazoned with Warner Brothers cartoon characters. Unfortunately, the plastic lids, the same as used on the standard cardboard glasses, didn't fit snugly enough, and I accidentally spilled pop or soda or cola, for those of you out of the area, all over the sandwiches before getting home with them. Now on to Burger Chef. Those of you of a generation younger than us baby boomers won't remember Burger Chef. At their peak in 1972, the chain had over 1,000 locations. Even though they're gone today, they came up with some innovations later adopted by other chains. McDonald's Happy Meal has its origins as Burger Chef's Fun Meal. A small burger, fries, drink, and a toy, plus stories about the Burger Chef, his young sidekick Jeff, Magician Burgerini, Count Fangburger, Talking Ape Burgerilla, and Cackleburger the Witch. Burger Chef had a works bar where you could add toppings to make a burger your very own. Burger Chef was Dad's favorite of the burger chains. I think it was the works bar that did it for him. And the fact that the employees at the location near us were always so friendly. Now, about Wendy's. Wendy's was a relative latecomer as far as burger places. It came along in the later 60s. Now, the first Wendy's to open by us started out using real plates and silverware, not just cardboard, styrofoam, and paper wrappers. You ordered at the counter, just like other fast food establishments, but they brought the food to your table when it was ready, on real plates no less, and with real silverware. And when you finished eating, no need to clear your table. They had workers or busboys that did this just like at a traditional sit-down restaurant. I've talked to others who grew up during the 60s, and none of them seem to remember Wendy's operating this way. So I don't know how long this continued or how widespread this level of service was, but that's how they did it at my local Wendy's early on. Last, but definitely not least, is Burger King. Burger King locations were very busy back then. People went for that flame-broiled taste. Their signature burger, the Whopper, was the big draw. The nearest Burger King was right down the street from where I worked in the late 60s. I arranged to meet somebody there during a lunch break one day. Burger King was so crowded that even though the service was fine, I got back to work late, getting in trouble for taking an extra long lunch break. Well, there you have it. A few unsolicited comments on a few of the better-known fast food places around in the 60s. Thanks for stopping by. Bon appetit.